This episode of The Trap Set is brought to you in part by Colectivo Coffee. Handmade coffee since 1993. Check them out online at colectivo.com.
This is Joe Wong. Welcome to The Trap Set, where each week we explore the lives of drummers. On November 21st, I traveled to Vieux Carré in St. Paul, Minnesota, to speak with a panel of some of the Twin Cities' most interesting drummers. I'd like to thank Tim Brunell, Jake Nyberg, and everyone in attendance for helping make the show a huge success. And now, I want to play something for you. So I'd like to introduce you to our panel. First, you'll know him from his work with the Steve Miller Band, Mr. Gordy Knudtson. This next gentleman was a member of Weather Report. He's played with McCoy Tyner and Joe Henderson, among many other geniuses of modern music. Mr. Eric Gravatt. Next up, you know her from her work with Babes in Toyland, one of the great bands to come out of the Twin Cities in the past 30 years. Miss Lori Barbero. And finally, you know him from his work with Bricklayer Cake and Shellac, Mr. Todd Trainer. Gordy, can you remember the first time you played drums?
Yes, it was in grade school. In about third grade, somebody had brought in a set of drums for show and tell. And the teacher, I was playing piano at that point in time. And the teacher said, let everybody come up and do some stuff on it. And I did some stuff on it. They liked what I did. I don't know, I'd never seen one before. Never played before.
Did you get a visceral response from playing drums that you didn't get from playing piano?
Maybe a little bit, mostly because I could figure out what to do easier with fewer choices of things to press, at that point. At that point, I was also playing what was written on the page, too.
I mean, I think that goes for lots of things in life. It's good to eliminate options, right? And then you can figure out what to do. Lori, do you remember the first time you played drums?
I do. Yep, I used to manage a local band called Run Westy Run, and I went to one of the rehearsals at Jim Harry's house. They rehearsed in his basement, and the drummer didn't show up, Bobby. So they're like, you should just try and play with us. And I was like, I don't know how to do any of that, but I dinked around on the drums, and Jim Harry, who now he writes for like Dozier Holland and all that stuff. He lives out in L.A., but he said, man, you're really natural. You should really get some drums. I said, I always wanted to play drums. He said, I'm not kidding. You're really a natural drummer, because I kind of dinked around on him. So then when Bobby was selling his drums, he called me and he said, buy Bobby's drums. He's selling them and you need to get them. And so that was
How much did they cost?
$200.
Was that the best $200 you've ever spent, or the worst $200 you've ever spent?
I guess the best. But yeah, they sat in a closet for a long time. A walk-in closet. But
Eric, when was the first time you played?
In the third grade. But I started with congas. I didn't pick up a kit until I was 13.
And you were living in Philadelphia at the time?
Yeah.
What were you listening to?
Oh, in third grade. Oh, nothing much. I listened to my parents' records. Count Basie, Duke Ellington.
Did you have an immediate connection to congas, or was it just kind of a hobby?
No, it was immediate. It was immediate. I took to it right away. Yeah.
And what made you progress to drum set?
Well, a guy up the street from me had a set. I called him Sharpnack Street Ray because I lived on Sharpnack Street, and I only knew him as Ray. And when he took a break, he would let us sit in on his instrument, and I took to that. So, I just picked it up.
Have you ever experienced the same thing from the other side? Like, in other words, have you ever let somebody sit in on your drum set for the first time and seen that look of elation come on their face?
Yeah, I guess so.
How often do you get that same feeling that you got when you played the congas for the first time when you sit down to play now?
Not very often.
I always think it's like a narcotic. The first time you do it, it's the best, and then it's the rest of your life is spent chasing that initial high.
Well, it depends upon with whom I'm playing.
So when you were playing with somebody like McCoy Tyner, would you get that feeling every night?
Yeah, just about. Yeah. I got it most profoundly with Wayne Shorter. That's when that was a good connection there.
When you were in Weather Report, or when
Yeah.
you were playing with him?
No,
aside?
Weather Report. Yeah.
Okay. Wayne Shorter. Yeah, I mean, if you can't get it with him, then I don't know who you could get it with. Todd, when was the first time you played drums?
I was 11 years old. 11 years old.
Can you remember what the situation was?
I do remember the situation. My brother and I shared a bedroom, my older brother. And my brother came home with a drum kit one day, the most exciting day in my life. And we both started to play drums that very same day. And he was a little bit older, and he was listening to the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Black Sabbath. And that made me a Beatles, Rolling Stones, and Black Sabbath fan. And so I would imitate my older brother, who is littler, so I can call him my little brother.
He was littler than you, even though he was old.
Brother. Are you following me?
Was he a little person?
No, he's just smaller than me because my stature is impressive. Those people laughing can't see me.
No need to point out the obvious.
I want to make sure the listeners around the world, because our reach is extensive worldwide, I want to make sure you know they can't see me. My stature is impressive. His is less impressive. So
What is he doing now?
he does whatever he wants now, which is a fantastic thing to do. In fact, he became a chiropractor, and he still enjoys music thoroughly.
Does he still play drums?
He doesn't play drums. There was a period of time when I owned a drum kit in Minneapolis, and I did not have a place to store it. So I stored it at my brother's house, and he did play drums while my kit was at his house.
What's your brother's name?
Tom.
So was there ever a time when you thought to yourself, fuck, I should have become a chiropractor like Tom. Why am I being a fucking drummer?
Fuck no! But I can guarantee you my brother, the chiropractor, thought, fuck, I should have been a drummer.
All right.
My brother is cool. My brother is cool, for sure.
Gordy, when did you make the transition from being a person who was interested in playing drums to considering yourself a drummer? When did it become central to your identity?
When I was about 15, I started kind of playing on my own. I liked it because I thought I could teach myself what to do. And I'd had piano lessons and clarinet lessons. And I tried to get some piano teacher to show me how to improvise, but I got to the wrong teacher, and I learned how to play stride with melodies, and I said, no, that's not what I want to learn how to do. And with the drums, I could kind of teach myself, so I kind of putzed around with it for a few months. Then my mother got me some lessons when I was about 15, and then I really just took to it. I always liked music. I always played along with records at home.
What records were you playing along with?
Aretha Franklin, James Brown, John Coltrane, Buddy Rich.
So we're talking about Bernard Purdy,
Oh yeah,
Clyde Stubblefield, Jabbo
Roger
Starks,
Hawkins, too. Yeah.
Roger Hawkins
Yeah.
from Muscle Shoals.
Yeah, the grooves were just outrageous. There was something about that music that you could just, you put it on and you felt that there was something greater there. There was just an innate soulfulness. You know, Aretha Franklin singing in this, "Since You've Been Gone, sorry, the bridge is still the baddest thing I've ever heard in my life." You know, from a vocalist, it's outrageous. She's, you know, that kind of stuff just give me chills. So I'd put the turntable on, take that, back in the old days, you'd lift the arm up, and the record would just play over and over and over and over again. I had headphones on and I played along, you know.
Do you think there's anything lost with music being so accessible as it is now?
Wow, that's a deep one. Yeah, yeah. From my age, what I've seen is a gradual kind of feels like a devaluation of the art form from society. And right now, there's so much available everywhere that it's just like this sonic wallpaper, and I think people are less attached to it.
Yeah, it's more of like a background thing.
Yeah, I mean, they might find some things they like, but at the school, you ask them. Sometimes I ask kids, "Who's your favorite drummer?" And no, I don't know. You know.
How do you respond to somebody when they say that? I mean, like, how do you pick that conversation up? Because you teach at McNally Smith.
Yes.
So if somebody doesn't know, somebody who's in college for music doesn't know who their favorite drummer is, how do you relate to them?
Well, they usually have some. They've got. It's tricky. You have to drag some more questions out of them to kind of get them to talk about either the band or play you some styles. But they're just, the thing I notice is they're just not as attached to it. So I just try and find what they are attached to, and then start from there, and then, you know, deal with what they know, and then start expanding the information.
Do you think that it's part of your job to help somebody fall in love with music, or do you assume that they have that passion before they come to you?
Wow, I think you either you feel what you feel towards the music, and that's what drives you there in the first place. That's not something that you can teach. What you can teach is an appreciation of another form of music that maybe you hadn't been exposed to before. That you can teach, I think.
Lori, when do you feel like you became a drummer and not a drumming enthusiast?
I think when I realized that, you know, I guess this is what I'm doing is drumming, or I'm in a band, and you know, when you start rehearsing in a basement, we rehearsed in my basement of my house when we first started. You know, we got a show in the entry, and you know, we played a lot for free. But then our first tour, we did a couple small tours in the United States, but we got to go to Europe with Sonic Youth when they asked us to go on tour with them to Europe, and it was Sonic Youth. It's like, wow, I guess maybe some people might like us, you know, and I felt like, you know, I was worthy because I don't know, and then when we came back, then we started getting paid for shows because we played a lot for free.
I feel like to a certain extent you're being self-deprecating. Have you ever? Was there a point where you felt really confident about what you're doing?
No. Not really not that. I mean, you know, even like now, Todd teaches drums, and he said you should teach drums, and I said I don't know how to teach drums. I can't read music. I don't really know if someone said do a 4/4. I don't really know. I just play the way that I play, and I'm self-taught, and I don't really know how to teach anyone anything. So it's just very strange. I've been asked to teach a lot. You know, would you give my daughter, my son some lessons? Will you teach me? And I'm like, I don't think I can.
Well, if you were to teach a lesson, what would be the first lesson you would teach somebody?
I would teach them to not take lessons and to learn on their own.
Why?
Because this is just me personally. Because I just think then you just have your own individuality. Like, I don't know. I just think if you just learn from somebody else, and but I've never taken lessons, so I'm just speaking out of what I think. That I just learned without anyone telling me to do, which probably could have helped me. When we did record, Lee Ronaldo said, you should try and use, like a drum click or track or something like that. I was like, no, this is the way I play, and so, but
So how did you have that confidence to assert yourself? If you say that you're not a confident drummer.
Oh, because I'm not very good at having people tell me what to do. That's one thing, but it's just also I think it's because I have been playing the way that I these songs, I've played them forever the way that I play them, and I just thought it would change the sound.
Well, I think for the majority of the history of music, it's been not as academic as it is now. Music is a language like any other language, and some people mistake becoming familiar with grammar and syntax with becoming an artist. And I think the two things are distinct from one another. And so you can still be a poet if you don't know proper grammar, right?
Yes. No. Yes.
What do you think about that concept, Eric?
About the concept of learning your own thing?
Yeah, I mean, like, where do you draw the line between kind of finding your own voice and then taking mentorship when it's available?
Well, it all depends on people with whom you're playing. If it connects and makes people dance or makes people listen, then it's working,
Yeah, when did you consider yourself a drummer?
When I first got paid.
How old were you?
16.
And then if you didn't get paid, would you consider yourself less of a drummer?
No. It was just.
So who were you playing with at 16?
I was playing with a high school band, Bob Parham, Warren Sunkett. I can't remember this other guy's name, but the people that were playing in my high school, and we played for the senior prom.
Who inspired you when you were 16 years old?
Kenny Clark and Elvin Jones.
And did Philly Joe ever come back to Philly and hang out and play gigs?
I saw Philly much later. He was off into his own thing by then. By the time I was playing, I guess the first guy that I saw that I really enjoyed was Anthony Williams.
What about his style spoke to you? Was he playing with Miles at the time?
Yeah, I was doing my French homework, and the live album at Antibes came on, and it caught me just right away. Well, first of all, the announcers, quartet de Miles Davis. Avec le jeune Tony Williams à la batterie.
Yeah.
So that's what caught my attention.
And then years later, when you worked with Wayne, did you talk about Tony at all?
No, because by that time I developed my own style. So I mean, he would mention Tony in such and such an instance playing, but. Wayne and I hit it off right away.
Wayne is a longtime Buddhist. Did you ever experiment with Buddhism?
No.
Do you practice any spiritual tradition in particular?
I'm a Sunni Muslim.
And were your parents Sunni Muslims as well?
No.
When did you get into Islam?
1976.
What about that particular faith resonated with you?
Well, a number of expatriate musicians that had adopted it, Art Blakey, Sahib Shahab, a bunch of guys that had adopted it, and led me to be interested in it.
As a cornerstone of your life, what does the religion give to you on a daily basis?
Discipline. Yeah, I have to pray 5 times a day.
How does that relate to your practice as a drummer?
Well, doesn't really relate to it because I've finished my period of practicing. I used to practice every day for a good number of hours, but it regulates my time, you know.
Todd, when did you consider yourself to become a drummer?
I like to think of myself now as a drumist.
Okay, what's the distinction?
There is no distinction. It's just I got tired of bassist, guitarist, drummer. It always sounded dumb. I thought, what the hell are they copying to this ist? I'm an ist. So I call myself a drumist. Try it. You're laughing at me. Everyone's laughing at me. Joe.
They're laughing with you.
I don't know if I can do these anymore. Joe's
love
actually put me through a few of these, quite torturous.
It's not torturous.
Depending on what side, where you're sitting, it depends on. So, when did I consider myself a drumist? I'm gonna, Eric, if I may, please. When I first got paid.
When was that?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not even sure if I've been paid yet. But when I get paid, I'm going to feel like a drumist, and it's going to be excellent. I might have gotten paid when I was 25, not 16. Hats off to you, Eric. That's really impressive, and I mean that sincerely. 16 is amazing.
I only made $20.
But when you were 16, $20.
What did you spend it on?
More drum equipment.
Yeah, of course.
Feeding the habit.
So cool.
So, I was in bands that generated some income prior to being 25 years old. But that income we generated typically went to paying for the rehearsal space and saving for recording and then manufacturing in those days a record.
Yeah.
And all of those things were expenses that still do exist if you choose to go that route. But people can make records inexpensively, if not for free these days. So we did generate income. That income was used to make a record. And I was probably 25 before I put a dollar in my pocket, put $1 in the pocket or something.
When did you first get paid, Gordy?
I did when I was 17. I did my first union gig. I was working I had 2 part-time jobs. My first part-time job was a busboy. It was so long ago it paid when the minimum wage was $1.25 an hour. I'd work a 40-hour week. I'd come home with maybe, I have like grossed maybe 50, 55, 60 bucks, and then you take taxes out. I had like 40 or so. Went out and played my first gig with the D-Don Trio, an organist and a saxophone. Both the guys were in their 50s at the time. And I walked out with 45 bucks that night. And I said, I'm going to do some more of this.
Do you think you would have kept doing it even if you wouldn't have gotten paid?
Probably, but it would have been an even more uphill climb at that point because my father was an economist and didn't understand music at all. So as long as the money was coming in, we were cool.
Where was he an economist?
It was the outfit called Banco, which became Norwest Banks, which was bought. So he was and he worked for the Federal Reserve for a while and that kind of thing.
So when you decided that you wanted to become a professional musician, were your parents supportive or were they scared or both?
My mother encouraged it. She got me the piano lessons. My father was never happy about it. He finally understood what I did because I was doing studio work when I was 19, and I was in the top clique of the guys in town here, and there was a lot of dates going on at that time. And about maybe it was 21 or 22, I played on a bank jingle that, because my dad at that time was a VP of marketing, and he was responsible for acquiring the thing, so I played on the track, and finally to him that, oh, I see how this works. You get this advertising, you get paid this way. Okay, it's not just playing in bars and doing that kind of thing. So that was a huge piece of business in my father's mind.
Was it difficult that the only way that you could relate is through commerce or through money? Was it frustrating that he didn't understand the passion that you had?
It was all right, a little, but I tell you this, he allowed me to practice drums. I would come home, once I decided I was going to play, I came home from school at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, put on the records, and I played for 3 hours till dinner time, stopped for dinner time, went down and ate dinner, went back at 6:30, played from 6:30 to 8:30, then they'd holler and say, okay, it's enough. And then I got off the drums and I got on the practice pad. So when my own stepson started to play drums, and he was good, it drove me nuts. So I get a new respect from what my father tolerated out of, in his house for those 3-4 years. So,
what does it mean to you to be a good drummer?
Someone who makes the music sound better and helps to deliver the concept of the composition, and who also can react to what happens and go with the moment if we get off plan. But I always like people to play for the group as opposed to play for themselves.
Do you think that drumming is an inherently supportive endeavor? In other words, do you think that it's there to support somebody else or somebody else's vision? Or do you think it can be integral to a song?
It could be integral, but it usually supports the song. In the job I do, if we play swing town, if I don't play boom ticka dum 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 suck, it's not the tune. So, I'm in that situation that you play 2 bars of that, everybody knows what's going to happen.
Do you get a kind of visceral enjoyment out of playing with Steve Miller? Do you feel like it's like an artistic endeavor aside from just being a job?
No, it's more than it's not. Some people look at a job like that, and you're looking at it all wrong. I get to play behind a really great singer, and we're playing some good tunes that I like. There's a lot of jobs that we do where we go in and we don't always like all the music that we have to play. But, I like all of it, and all of the stuff is around it is absolutely world class, and, I've got no complaints. So to me, I'm always happiest when it's serving a bigger picture, or we sound great as a band. That gets me most excited. If I have a good night, I'm happy about that too, but to me, it's always about having a good night with the band.
Now, lots of those albums were originally recorded by people like Gary Malaber.
Yeah.
And I've been in situations where I'm playing a drum part written by somebody else.
Yeah.
And I try to think of it like being an actor. Like, you can find an artistic place as an actor, even though somebody else wrote your lines. And I wonder if you think of it in a similar way, or if you find it less rewarding when you're working with somebody else's parts.
That depends on the personality of the band leader. The nice thing with Steve, there's a lot of room. So if he doesn't like something I'm doing, he'll just tell me, I don't like that. Do something else there, or change that a little bit. So I'm not handcuffed to being that, and that wouldn't bother me if the parts are good. The thing that would drive me nuts is having the robotic performance where it's got to be note for note every night. And I've seen arena, big acts that do that. That to me would be a living hell.
Lori, what does it mean to you to be a good drummer?
That's tough. I guess, the last show that we played at First Avenue, personally for me, I think that was like the best show that we did. And so I felt really good about it. It's like, man, did it really take us that long? But, we've gone through a few bass players and all that. But, it's when everyone is on it together. I always have a good time. When we first started out, I remember saying from the get-go, when I'm not having any fun anymore, I'm out of here.
Has there ever been a period where you haven't had fun?
Yeah, and then we had a 10-year break.
Okay. During that 10-year break, what were you doing?
I did a band with a couple people. I did a side project, or just a band. It was a side project, so I wasn't doing really anything else. It was called the Willis Project with Dave Perner and Jim Boquist and Greg Nicholas and Bill Siegel, and we did a show in Minneapolis, and then some woman in New York said, "Oh, you should come and play out here." So she flew us all out there, put us up in a hotel, and did a show out there, and we had a really great weekend. That was super fun, and it was on 11/11, and we played at 11 o'clock. I remember that, and because I'm a numbers person. But and then I did another band, and we released a CD. We were called the Koalas. It was my friend Rita was singing, and there's a few other people, and we put out one record, but that just kind of fizzled out after a while. I think the guitar player was really super pro and really super mathematic and all this, and I didn't play exactly how he liked to do it, and I'm like, I can't play that way, and so it just kind of went.
Eric, as far as I understand, you also took a break from being a professional musician, and you were a prison guard for some time. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How long were you a prison guard?
19 years and some odd days.
How did you get into that gig?
Well, my kids have a disgusting habit of growing out of shoes.
So, earlier you said that you considered yourself to be a drummer on the first day that you got paid.
Yeah.
And then now you're saying that you went into a different career to pay for having children. Did you feel like you'd lost that part of your identity during that time?
No, I worked on my days off every now and then when I could, and I took part in a band called Passage, where I played congas with Gordy playing traps.
Yeah, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Was that a conscious decision to go into something more stable rather than touring and being gone? Like, did you want to be around your children as they were growing up?
No, I wanted to be around them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. My kid's mother died when she was. She died about 9 years after we were married, so that put an imperative on the entire ordeal.
Did becoming a parent and supporting your children give a different meaning to music when you got a chance to play it?
Not necessarily, no. Music always means the same thing to me because I've been fortunate in having been able to play my own style. I've never had to play anybody else's music. I've played with other bands, but it's always been my style.
How would you characterize your style?
As Kenny Clark, an extrapolation of Kenny Clark. Something on the ride, simple, and some titty booms. Some bombs, yeah. But it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and just split it up the way I did.
Have you ever taught?
Yeah, I've taught for a few times, but I'm not happy with teaching. First of all, I don't appreciate it when kids come in and don't do what I tell them to do.
Well, okay. Well, as a parent, would your kids generally do what you told them to do?
Yeah, as a rule. But my youngest played very good violin, and my oldest played bass. But they were under different circumstances.
How do you mean? Like you had control of more of their life than just these students that would come in?
Right.
If you were to teach a drum lesson, what would the most important lesson be?
I guess to be flexible with the time, and be aware of the passage of time, and how music sometimes demands that you slow down, or sometimes you speed up, but you have to be aware of the passage of time.
When you're playing, do you feel like you're in a state where you're thinking a lot, or are you feeling?
Not so much anymore. I'm feeling more. The mechanical part of my playing has already incorporated itself.
Yes.
And so I'm just trying to pull off something that I may hear at a given moment.
Right. It's like you already have a command of the language, and at this point, it's just expressing ideas.
Exactly. Yeah.
How long did it take you to get to that point?
4 or 5 years. Yeah.
What about you, Gordy? When did you feel like you had a command of the language of music?
I'm kind of still working on it. I feel like I got the
This
rock
guy
and roll
got it in
thing.
4 or 5 years. What's wrong with you?
Listen, some kind of extrapolated Kenny Clark. Let me tell you, this is some thermonuclear Kenny Clark is what I saw. I saw this guy play with we worked together for about, a couple years in Passage.
Yeah.
I saw him come to town and play with Natural Life. I've seen a lot of drummers play, and since then, a lot of drummers play. I have never seen anybody play the stuff that he played when he came to it was unbelievable. There were musicians in town that would come down. I was down as many nights as I could see, and there were musicians in town constantly talking about it. I remember specifically one night after a gig, I raced down to get in, and Rockwell came off. Man, you just missed the world's greatest drum solo. And he had heard you so many other times, and he said that was the killer, and I missed it that night. But this is one of my heroes. This is a guy. This is one of my idols, and he's as good.
So great.
It freaked me out because we got him on. I had him wanted to see if he played congas in the rock band, and he came in, and I had one of those terrible, cheap conga drums that you couldn't get a tone on. He sat down and played, and it sounded like a real drum. I went, oh my God. Just amazing. But so I'm still working on it. I feel like I've got, in the last few years, I feel like I've really got a handle on the arena rock thing, and I'm doing the Steve's band right now sounds really good. I'm really happy with what I'm doing in that. I've edited out all the nonsense, and now we're getting to the core of what it is. Now it's just a matter of, are we all in a good space every night when we're playing,
What percentage of the time are you in a good space?
Most of the time,
I guess
But
that's the best we
that's-
can hope for.
Yes, it all starts at the top, though, we'll say.
If you were to take a lesson from Eric, what would you ask him?
Oh, I did, and it multiple
So
times.
you're one of those kids that came in and
Listen,
didn't do
I'm
what he
telling
told you to do.
I'm telling you.
No, he did. Gordy did what I told him to do.
I seriously, we learned. He came in. So at our little rock band, we said, yeah. So we'll have Eric come in and play congas with us. And he came over for rehearsal. We did. Yeah, we all agreed. Yeah, it's all good. I said, man, we have a 4-night-a-week gig. You just play the weekend nights. He says, no, man, I'll play all 4 nights. So then, okay, do you want to do any tunes? And he said, yeah. And then he brought out this Potato and Totico tape, popped it into the thing, and we're all sitting there listening going, where's one? Oh, my God. I've never heard anything like this. And then he proceeded to teach us how to play this music. And it was incredible.
Well, how would you characterize his teaching style?
he showed you, and it just was, yeah, and it was just like, it was mentoring, mentoring.
Todd, you've been teaching for the last few years. How would you describe your own teaching style?
As stylish, first and foremost. And there's been a lot of talk about lessons and teaching. Each instructor is obviously going to be very, very different. I'm attempting to offer the highest quality experience I can. And I start my lessons with no discipline at all. Whether it's a child or adult, I say just play. I want to hear your beat of the week. Make something up. It has to be something I haven't taught you. And my goal as an instructor is to have my student play drums like my student. I want each drummer to play like themselves, right? A lot of people have people they idolize or people they look up to. That's fantastic. We can use the motivation as good. But this word has come up frequently on stage tonight, and it's style. That's what attracts me to any drummer, is style. And I've seen a lot of incredible drummers technically that have absolutely no style.
Yeah, it's like being a spelling bee champion, but not a poet per se.
Very much so. Interesting analogy, Joe.
Thank you, Todd.
Let's hear it for Joe Wong. He does make these happen, and these are really interesting and fascinating shows, Joe. I sat down with my family and enjoyed my own podcast with Joe, and it was really interesting. It really revealed a lot to myself and my family while we were with each other.
How did you
Very
become
bizarre.
such a confident person?
I played drums in a great rock band.
Yes.
Gives me tons of confidence.
Yes.
Tons of confidence. A lot of confidence. So this is a great thing for drummers, right? This is a great thing for students, for anyone who wants to play an instrument. Drums. And I don't want lessons to be a bad thing, because when I was a kid, a lesson was a bad thing. I'm exactly like Gloria. I don't want anyone to tell me how to play drums. I'm going to figure it out myself, like all of us. And that's where we're going to find our style.
How do you help a student
discover
their own voice?
And this is what I want. We talked about language earlier, right? And there were a lot of things I could hear other drummers play, but I couldn't figure out what they were doing. A lot of it I could figure out what they were doing, but as things got more complicated, more complex, I'd be like, wow, what is that? And some of these things took me 25 years to figure out a Bonham triplet, because I stumbled upon it. I finally figured out that's that thing. It's so easy, but I was approaching it wrong. So I can teach someone a Bonham triplet in 25 seconds. It doesn't take 25 years. It took me 25 years to figure it out because I'm not a genius. I'm a drummist. So these are the things. I teach very, very, very basic lessons for beginners. I find a student who's never played drums is an excellent student. And I like them to just approach the drum kit from a fresh perspective. I teach really basic beats with basic fills. I have a very, very strict curriculum for a year-long curriculum. Inevitably, my goal is to get every drummer on their own curriculum. I want to give them the knowledge so they can start to make up and create their own original, unique beats and fills. I'm all about the original, unique beats and fills. Not mine, not anybody else's, theirs. Mm-hmm. Theirs. That's what I'm focused on as the student, being creative, original, and unique. That's it. And having fun.
And I think
playing.
Everybody up here is creative, original, and unique.
Joe, so you have an incredible taste in drummers, and your podcast is reflective of that. You have certainly interviewed and showcased some of the greatest living drummers on the planet, without question. We're in a pretty remarkable area of the world, the Twin Cities, and there are a half a dozen guys out there I saw tonight, and I'm sure another half a dozen more men and women that are every bit as good as all of us that are on this stage tonight. The Twin Cities are loaded with incredible drummers.
Why do you think that is?
I think it is. It's because of men and women like this that have been playing at a high level for a long time. There's a half dozen guys right here that would play circles around me. I just happen to be more popular than they are.
Well, that's because you're so handsome. But wait a second. Let me ask you this. Why is there such a disproportionately high number of great artists in the Twin Cities versus other cities?
I honestly think the reason why Minneapolis has amazing musicians, artists, is because we have such long, horrible winters. You have nothing else to do but to create. And so it really helps a lot. If it was nice out 365 days a year, you're going to be outside and you're not going to be doing what you want to do because
we'd sound like the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
And they're awful, right? Yeah, they're awful. Everybody's raising their hands. Yep, everyone says they're awful.
Well, yeah, I mean, I live in Los Angeles and everybody's all blissed out all the time because it's so nice outside.
The West Coast is the worst. All that West Coast music is awful. After the Beach Boys.
What about Ornette Coleman? He was pretty good, right?
Who?
Ornette Coleman?
Incredible. I don't know my jazz.
Okay.
You can talk to this. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Ornette Coleman. Of course, I know who he is. I don't listen to jazz.
I was just being a contrarian. Anyways,
sure.
Eric, what brought you to Minneapolis, St. Paul in the first place?
I came here to play with a
Bobby
band
Lyle.
called Natural Life. I think it was at 74.
But no, before that, you came and you did a concert at the Guthrie Theater with Bobby Lyle, Bob Rockwell, and Billy Peterson. I remember I went and saw it.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I saw you.
No, the first time you saw me was at Cafe Extraordinaire.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh yeah, it's even further back.
With Byron Lancaster. Yeah.
Well, what's kept you here all these years?
My family. Yeah. Well, I don't feel as much at home as I used to. When I first came here, I was the toast of the town. But when I started being asked to be paid, I became just toast. So I'm in the process now of trying to go back to Philadelphia. But I can't sell my house. I just can't move the house.
Why do you want to go back to Philadelphia?
Because I can't make a living here.
Todd, what's kept you here? 2/3 of your band is based in Chicago. Why did you stay in Minneapolis?
The Twin Cities are an incredible place to live. I feel fortunate. I've traveled extensively now. I've traveled in 40 different countries, and I've traveled the United States relatively extensively. And I just think this is a really quality place to live. We have incredible arts, as Lori spoke to earlier, music, entertainment, people. It's naturally beautiful, and I rate Minneapolis as one of the incredible cities of the world. I enjoy large cities. I enjoy Rome, I enjoy Barcelona, and there are cities in the world that I find more fascinating and more interesting, but they're more challenging. This is a really comfortable and amazing place to live. The quality of life here is remarkably high.
And with that, I think our time is up. Thank you so much, everybody. The Trap Set is produced by me, Joe Wong, along with Chris Karwowski, who also edits the program. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Trap Set, and visit our website, thetrapset.net, to subscribe to our show for free. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please donate to our show. If If you can't afford to donate, please tell a friend and give us a good rating on iTunes. Send your feedback and guest requests to thetrapset@gmail.com.